On December 1st, 2017, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was released. I went to go pick it up after class, played for a while, and was thoroughly unimpressed with the game and put it on the back burner until after I finished my finals I had the next week. 1 year later, I'd say it's probably my favorite game of all time. I can't believe it's already been a year, honestly. And I never anticipated that I'd spend so much time with a single-player game or still be actively playing it a year later. I've always been a major fan of the franchise. I absolutely loved the first game in my initial playthrough and really enjoyed doing them 100%. I don't think it has amazing replay value since it's more story-driven, but it was still a fantastic experience. I loved X and even got a few records on their leaderboards, but even that game I quit playing for a year despite the multiplayer aspects. Felt like the game was too easy after learning how to easily break the combat system and all the broken things you could do in it. And once offline became the best way to compete for a lot of records, I just got bored. Somehow that hasn't happened at all for Xenoblade 2. I still think the combat is the best, and I still enjoy using all the mechanics whether in speedruns or in post-game challenges over the year later. But that's not the only thing that I love about this game. I really enjoyed the entire experience. All the patches, the expansion, the world, story, and lore, almost everything about the game is something that I enjoyed. And that's kind of going to be what this video is. Just wanted to give my thoughts about the game a year later and how it's affected me and many others. I've never really done a video like this since I mostly stick to gameplay stuff, so I hope it'll be interesting and I don't ramble too much. In the meantime, I'll just put a bunch of cool things I've done as footage for the video, so please enjoy that. This video will probably be more podcast type instead of some beautifully poetic love letter to the game, so don't expect anything special from me. So it's a bit funny how my initial experience of this game was. I loved the first game and Xenoblade X, but I wasn't even hyped for this game at all. I didn't pre-order it or anything. I wasn't a fan of the character designs for Rex and Pyra. I didn't even watch any trailers besides the initial one and the 15-minute one where Zerda was speaking the entire time. And we heard some terrible voice acting that removed from the main game that take this line in particular. I'm sure many of you remember that one. I was really worried about the direction of the series and was even pretty harsh on it in a few Discord servers dedicated to the franchise, calling it Xenoblade Anime Edition among other things. Upon getting the game, my opinions didn't initially change much. Rex felt like a generic shonen character and I wasn't a fan of his young and idealistic nature, and Pyra seemed to be one of the most boring characters in existence, and combat was seemingly slow because I didn't know about dessert pouch items yet, and I was comparing it to late game Xenoblade X that had Overdrive, which was a very unfair comparison since early game Xenoblade X is painfully slow. But I kept playing and I got to chapter 3 and I was a pretty big fan of Vandam, but he had so many death flags I knew something big was probably coming. But I still wasn't really attached to anyone, story didn't have me really invested so far, and the gameplay and combat was not impressing me so far. All that starts to change a bit when I get to the end of chapter 3. So I do the first phase of this fight where you fight Malos and Akos and end up beating it after some time, and I get to one of the cutscenes at the end of chapter 3 where Vandam stabs himself to let the ether flow through his body or whatever. Drifting Soul is playing, everything is intense, and keep in mind that I haven't watched many trailers for this game, so I'm basically doing the entire story blind. It seems like the story is finally about to pick up with this scene, and then it happens. Pyra transforms into a good character! You know, one of my favorite things in, like, anime or manga series is watching broken characters just kick some ass. Watching these overconfident antagonists after a long time of taunting the protagonist just start mentally breaking when things aren't going their way anymore, or just seeing the reactions of people is so satisfying to me. That's one of my favorite parts of series like One Punch Man or Jojo. Mythra's appearance kind of brought that same kind of feeling and energy for me. Akos is freaking out, Malos is basically creaming himself, and she turns the tide of the fight by herself. No indecision, no weakness for someone supposed to be a legendary blade. Already like her way, way better than Pyra. Second half of the fight starts and you just feel so much better and more powerful than Pyra, it's crazy. Later I'd learned this was mostly thanks to a game-specific buff she has for this fight only, but besides that she still felt good to control with arts recharging faster and specials being very powerful. I'd say her appearance in that cutscene as a whole is what got me hooked on the game. It probably wouldn't be wrong for me to say that she made the game fun for me. A little later in chapter 4 I get to her for full time and check her chart, an insane party-wide buff that she has with foresight, amazing critical rate, and ability to recharge arts and specials with critical hits. I knew this character was good and for a while assumed she was possibly the best in the game. Keep in mind this was way before anyone had grinded Cutie Pie. I really enjoyed using her and was interested to see more of her character after hearing about her past. Sure, there was a few questionable scenes where her personality isn't really the best in the early chapter 4, but over the course of the game she really grew on me and was one of the main reasons I kept playing from gameplay to character. She was definitely my favorite character, and after Torna, I'd say she's probably the best written character in the game for a number of reasons related to her development over both games. But let's get back to the game as a whole for now. Anyway, a couple other things that happened in Chapter 4, including me discovering desserts after pouch expanding Rex to get increased art cooldown, and getting Archchain on his skill tree. Combat picked up drastically as far as speed. Felt like I was doing stuff all the time and could infinitely use arts combined with the critical hit cooldowns I was getting. This is when I started to enjoy the game a bit more. I made it a priority to max Mithra's chart for infinite cooldowns, and I even found some accessories that would become infamous for this game. Critical healing medals. I pretty much put this on and was able to become a self-sustaining tank with her and never really looked back. As far as the rest of the game, the story did kind of slow down in Chapter 4, but once Chapter 5 started, it picked up again and never really stopped. I actually got into it a bit, even if it isn't the greatest written story of all time. I got to do some cool evasion strats in Chapter 7 when Mithra was taken away from me, got to laugh at the really dumb Nia scene, and then got Super Mithra, or Numa as we call her now, at the end of the chapter, who was even more of a ridiculously broken character. I was definitely enjoying the game now, and then finally got to Chapter 10. Just like everyone else who had played Xenoblade 1, I had a bit of a holy crap moment upon watching the first cutscene, and basically stayed up past 4 AM finishing the game at that point because I couldn't wait to see what happened. The story had completely hooked me at that point. I even liked a lot of the characters after Morag and Zeke joined and Poppy and Tora got some development. Mithra was still my favorite, and watching her in Chapter 8 and 9 was awesome since she had so many great moments like with Poppy, Jin, and even Rex. Still wasn't the biggest fan of Rex personally, but came to accept him. Nia was alright, and as far as Pyra, I kind of forgot she existed a lot of the time since I never used her in combat anymore, and it didn't really feel like she had a real reason for existing in the story. Sorry, Pyra fans. But as I was saying, the story, characters, and world had definitely hooked me. Learning about the world and the final confrontation with Malos was pretty cool. Even the ending of the game got me really emotional. As a 21-year-old, I got so attached to a fictional character that I was torn up inside for like 20 minutes and never wanted to play the game again when I thought she died. To me, that's the sign of a great character, and the story pulled me in enough for it to be extremely sad that it had killed her. People like to meme about the story as a whole and say it's way inferior to the first game, but I don't think I've had emotions that strong even after the first game, even if it might be objectively worse as a story. I think it did its purpose well. The story was such a good experience overall, and I probably had the biggest mood change of all time when Mithra came back and was actually alive, even if it may not have been great reasoning or writing to separate the forms or to bring them back at all. So as for much flack as the story might get, and for how many anime tropes and stuff like that it might have, I think the story was pretty solid when it focused on those aspects and had a lot of memorable characters to help carry it. Even better characters than the first game, in all honesty. And as you probably already know from things I've said earlier, Mithra in particular is a bit special to me as a standout. From gameplay to the story to design, she was awesome. I liked her super form a lot too, and always saw that form in most of the moments as Mithra. I don't want to talk too much about her, but even before Torna I loved her, and after Torna I loved her even more. It's even a bit of a meme that she's my waifu or something, but I'll just ignore that one. The point is, Mithra is best girl, and if you disagree, you are wrong and should go replay the game again. And yeah, the game's really good, so you should replay it anyway. So that's a bit of my initial experience with the game. After that, I went on to maxing out some blades, and it turns out the game was similar to X in that all the super bosses were really easy. It got to a point where I wanted to challenge myself some, and figured Mithra was so strong and broken that I bet I could solo some of these super bosses like Ophion and Tyrana Titan with her. So I did. I got some screenshots of me soloing these monsters with just a single blade and shared them in some of the larger Discord servers. I had noticed online no one had attempted this yet on YouTube or anything like that, and I know a lot of times in early game life cycles people tend to enjoy seeing these heavily restricted challenges like that. There were a lot of people asking me how I was able to do stuff like that, so I made the decision to go buy an Elgato finally. My cheap ass didn't want to spend $200 2 years ago for X, and this time I didn't really want to miss out on the hype. And I was already late beating the story and didn't really expect a ton, but I figured I might as well get some views if I did some cool stuff in the game. So I got my Elgato and posted a video where I soloed Tyrana Titan with just Mithra and Rex. It was 20 minutes long and very suboptimal, but people watched it. So I kept posting more videos, more challenges, even started doing some guides that were also suboptimal and some kind of bad. But people watched them too, and my channel kind of took off. Didn't really expect it too much. In a lot of my earlier videos I have awful editing skills and just bad videos in general, so I'm kind of surprised I even got to this point. If I know a lot of what I know now, I definitely think it could have been up there even with the larger Xenoblade channels like Enel or Blunz, but I'm still very grateful to have even gotten to this point. Those early months of the game were definitely a bit rough though. There felt like there was a very large lack of content for the game, and the super bosses weren't really a challenge at all, leading to speed kills and challenges being the only interesting aspect of them. There were a lot of poor quality of life decisions as well, like being unable to skip blade pulls among other things. But one of the things that this game had that the first game in X didn't really have was a lot of periodic updates for quality of life issues as well as content. We got a huge patch with New Game Plus that gave us a lot of new blades from Torna that were pretty fun to use, and got this massive buff for Pandora that let her just destroy everything in the game extremely hard with Eye of Shining Justice. I'll never forget getting to that too, because I was probably the only loser who grinded skill points before the new patch came out, and had a lot of people watching my midnight stream when the patch launched. Pretty much was the first person to get the ability, and my reaction is still one of the most popular videos and Twitch clips, since no one knew anything about it beforehand. It felt like the game was getting a lot of love, and the new challenge mode on the horizon was something to really look forward to, as the new accessories and blades helped break the game even further. And challenge mode did come, and it really increased the replayability factor of the game. Shulk and Fiora were really hype and good, and those challenges were really fun to do over and over again for better times. It's still something I enjoy doing, and just destroying these high health difficult enemies is so satisfying. Felt like the complaints about the difficulty of the game had finally been addressed. I actually pulled an all-nighter when it came out doing the challenges and maxing Shulk and Fiora's chart, and I even made a guide for Shulk after maxing him so I could release it as soon as possible. About a month after that, we got Bringer of Chaos as a difficulty option and custom settings. And while Bringer of Chaos still has some balancing issues in my opinion, I really appreciated all the additional challenges, and I loved how custom settings made doing a lot of testing comparisons a lot easier for videos and theory crafting. And after that, we got Elma and Corvin, who are both really strong and increased time potential in a lot of the older challenges so we could revisit them. And it all culminated in the Torna Story Expansion Pass being released in September. And boy was this incredible. It fleshed out my favorite character even more, introduced a cast I found myself liking even more than the main game, and fixed a lot of the complaints many had had with the base game. Combat was pretty fast throughout without the need for pouch items. Chain attacks weren't insanely broken, but orbs were still efficient to stack. The only real weakness was the community level 4 thing, but even then most of the side quests were really good, and getting to max community, seeing all the characters we met combined for one goal and getting that picture for doing it were all pretty awesome things. It was a great background story, and as an initial experience, I think I enjoyed it even more than the base game. Adam was awesome, I liked Jin, Laura was decent, Minoth was fun to play, Hayes was cute, and even Team Hugo was pretty nice. And of course, I still loved Mithra. The story and ending got me really emotional and had some really great moments, but I don't think I'll forget for a while. Even if it's just an expansion story, I really felt like there was a lot of heart in it, and overall I still consider it part of the experience with Xenoblade 2 as a whole, so it's absolutely worth mentioning here. All the patches and updates we got greatly enhanced the experience of the game as a whole. There's so much about the game to love just in general. The music, for example, has always been a strong point in the series, and in this game that is no exception. Pretty much all the music that's been in the background of this video is from the game, and it's all amazing. It's easy to get a lot of the songs stuck in your head just because of how beautiful and memorable they are when you're in certain areas or watching certain cutscenes. I feel like many of these songs perfectly match the situation, whether the sad choir in Theoswar or the upbeat roaming the wastes or Ardain. Even the battle themes are all really great, with some just matching the ridiculousness of who's being fought, like the Zeke theme or the Rosa theme. I guess it's a matter of opinion at the end of the day, but I definitely think the music is very, very good and memorable. And by the way, the Torna battle theme is the best song in the game, and probably a great contender for the theme song of the entire series. So let's talk about the big things, and basically the reason I find the game so fun and replayable. It's basically the main gimmick of this game, the blade system. Now say what you will about the gacha, but it's incredibly easy to actually farm cores and should not take you more than a day or two to get all the blades if you actually really want them post-game. I think the random element of the common blades is pretty interesting, and a lot of them can be really strong depending on your luck, but for the most part a lot of the stronger rares are all you really need. Many strong rares can be obtained without the gacha through DLC even. But outside of feelings about the RNG element of the gacha aside, I really enjoyed the blade system of the game. Each blade had their own skills, their own specials, their own abilities to make them stand out and give you a reason to use or not to use them. This went a long way in increasing the replayability of the game, and while sometimes the arts were the same and people will even complain about 3 arts for some reason, each blade really felt like they had an identity of their own with their different specials and different purposes, and some of these blades could excel in areas that others could not. It was really interesting to unlock and use all 53 of them in combat and learn about them through playing the game. It felt like changing blades was a bigger customization feature for your drivers than any of the stuff you would do in other games, just because of how different all the abilities of the blades were. That's one of the cool things about the game. People complain about lack of customization options like in X without realizing that the blades are the customization. And boy, can they drastically change how you play some characters and offer lots of different strengths and weaknesses. You're even able to swap between 3 in battle for 9 arts, 12 specials, and they can all be chained together if you really choose. Although this often isn't super optimal. But overall, I feel like the blade system really helped out the game as far as combat. In Tournament, it was more limited, but they did a great job of making all the drivers and blades fun to use and making them all really good. And the swapping mechanic led to basically being able to infinitely cancel and do things if you understood the game. The battle system as a whole was definitely a major strong point in the game. The combat is extremely fun and addicting and easily my favorite in the series. It's very fun going for fast times in challenge mode and figuring out the best combination of blades and moves to make that possible. The damage cap increases the viability of a lot of blades as well and ensures no fights in challenge mode against tougher enemies are super free without an amazing strategy. The theory crafting aspect as well as the execution is extremely satisfying. The mechanics of canceling things and understanding all the different types of combos leads to it being really fun to just fight enemies for a long time trying to get better times. Even the solo blade challenges that take like 20 minutes are still really fun to do when you're just playing around with the combat of the game. I think desserts or art recharge pouch items really helped the game a lot, and I wish there was like a mandatory tutorial forcing people to use them because they really help the speed of the game a ton. But yeah, just doing the combat of this game is really fun. Having high damage chain attacks and setting them up is really cool. Overdrive is a pretty fun mechanic that was added with Elma. Spamming arts with like Eye of Shining Justice is really fun, and locking up enemies and driver combos is also pretty fun. Figuring out how to tackle enemies and experimenting with a variety of different gameplay options is one of the things that keeps me playing this game even now. I love using cross-set strategies in the speedrun, and I love using a variety of different fight strategies for every enemy there, even if I mainly control one blade. Expand that to all the different blades in the game for post-game challenge mode, as well as party setup, and there's just so many different ways to tackle enemies that you can do. And as I said, figuring out the best and fastest way to do this is one of the most fun things in the game for sure. I'm probably still doing challenge mode stuff in the future. I'd love to one day sweep all the records for every difficulty on the speedrun leaderboards, provided I get the time and motivation. The combat in this game is just that good, and I hope that others have been able to see and understand that as well after playing and getting a better understanding of it. And if you don't have a great understanding of it, feel free to check out some of my guides on how damage works and fusion combos and all that kind of stuff. It covers a lot of it and help you appreciate combat and enjoy it even more, trust me. I don't really know if I have a ton else to say, but I can say that the game has definitely grown on me, and my opinion of it before it came out and now has definitely been reversed. And it's definitely left a big impact on me in my life, and I think that's extended elsewhere as well. Over 1.5 million copies were sold, and there's still a dedicated fan base making artwork, content, and still just talking about the game to this day, wondering if we'll get these characters in Smash. We even got a nice free update giving us a Mithra's amazing Smash outfit with the leggings too, showing us that they still care about us to pay attention to the community. And that's one of the greatest things about Monolith and why I'm so excited for what they might have planned for us in the future. Everything about Xenoblade 2, from the story to the characters, to the music, to the gameplay, to the entire experience of this past year has been incredible to me. I would have never reached nearly 6,000 subscribers and helped so many people with useful guides or show off cool speedruns of the entire game in challenge mode without it. One of my biggest goals for the game was becoming a large figure in the community and possibly considered the best, or the general expert on the game. Currently, I have the speedrun world record and multiple of the harder and more interesting challenge mode records, and thousands of people watch my guides, so I'd say I was actually pretty successful. I may not have had a strong start to the channel, but I think all the support I've gotten later is actually better, since the people who watch my stuff now and are sub to me are people who I know love this game and want to see even more content in the future for this game and even other Xenoblade games. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for everything. All the subscribes, all the shares, all the likes, all the comments, even the negative ones. And thank you all just in general for the support. And if you're watching this and aren't sub to me, well, thanks for the views, but I'd certainly appreciate it if you would. But I think I've rambled long enough. This actually ended up being a little bit shorter than I anticipated, but I guess I got to the point. I truly love this game despite any flaws that it may have. It may not have been the objective best game ever made, but it's my personal best game ever made, and I hope it is for many of you as well. I look forward to continuing to make content for this game in the future, but until then, thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.